I just recently watched the movie Captive State. This was a 2019 sci fi movie that may have slipped under your radar. This movie did poorly at the box office, and the critics weren't particularly fond of it. Apparently, unlike most of the people who saw it, my wife and I thought it was a pretty decent movie. The movie had a $25 million budget, which nowadays is considered modest. The movie is entirely dependent on its acting and its storyline. It's buoyed at points by some well-placed CGI, but the glue holding the entire thing together is occupied Chicago as a backdrop. It is a police procedural set in a near future sci fi setting. Human tech has essentially regressed. Alien tech is way ahead, but only appears in limited dollops. The movie opens in the immediate aftermath of the Earth surrendering to an alien invasion. Uh, Part of this relies a bit on stock footage to explain that the Earth has accepted an armistice and that soldiers are returning to base to lay down arms. Uh, the next sequence introduces us to the aliens and sets up the baseline of the story. The movie then jumps some 10 years into the future. The movie is essentially three storylines running in parallel to each other. The first storyline features a young man played by Ashton Sanders, and he's working on a plan to escape occupied Chicago and try to live free somewhere out in the wilderness. The second storyline features an aging police detective played by John Goodman. He's been working the same district since before the alien invasion, and we find out that one of the districts of Chicago was completely leveled by the aliens after an attempt at resistance came from the area. The police detective works to keep order in his area, and he's quite sure another resistance effort is in play. And it's his job to try to prevent a terrorist act from happening so that he can prevent his district from being leveled in retaliation. The third storyline is that of the insurgents working on bringing a plan of some sort to fruition. The thing that makes this work, in my opinion, is that the audience is put into the awkward position of not quite knowing who to root for. On one hand, you have the police detective, who is for all intents and purposes, a collaborator. However, his motives are very pure. He is trying to prevent the portion of the city he has worked for decades from being destroyed by thwarting the resistance from being able to do their job. Yet on the other hand, you want to root for the insurgents because they're trying to stand up to the alien occupation. The city of Chicago has a stagnant retro feel to it. On one hand, it's in the process of slowly decaying because nobody is trying to do anything in terms of upkeep. The other impact is the aliens have stripped away a lot of the communications technology in order to maintain control. So the internet is essentially gone, except for rudimentary backbones that some of the hackers can get into. Uh, People are dependent on isolated pockets of landline telephones to communicate. The newspapers are back in print because it's one of the better ways to communicate. The feel is that the city's in a slow death spiral, which probably isn't too far from reality Chicago. However, the setting, I believe, is one of the major strengths of the movie. The cinematography gives it kind of a retro 70s major recession feel. I don't know if that's helpful. It's hard to describe, and that's the best words I could come up with for it. Once the movie all comes together at the end, you're treated to yet a fourth storyline that was in play the whole time. Although it's not easy to see while the movie is in progress, it's very to see all the traces of it throughout the movie, and you can put it together once you see what's happening. The pacing of the movie is very decent. There's no point where you feel like it's lagging. Things slow down at points enough for you to drink in the ambience before they stay too long, and then the plot begins moving forward again. I found John Goodman's acting to be absolutely phenomenal in it. All the actors really did a good job. And so, if you're looking for a good character story built around a police procedural that just happens to be in the middle of a sci fi invasion, you're going to like this. Uh, if you're expecting nonstop flashing and scene changes at every 3 seconds and high tech explosions going off all around you, probably not your cup of tea. I always try to come up with a movie to compare it to. When I watch a movie, I say, okay, this is like, try to set expectations for people who might want to look at it. And I honestly have a really hard time thinking of anything that's quite like it. The closest I can come to is the original TV movies V from the 1980s. However, in this case, you don't see the aliens. In fact, they're this rare treat that pops up from time to time. The aliens never talk directly to the people, they act through human intermediaries. The aliens, there's nothing hidden about them. They're truly alien and very horrifying from the get go. In fact, I was really impressed with the design of the aliens. And in this case, the enforcers are entirely the human police department. I hope you get an opportunity to check this movie out. It's probably not the one that you'll go back to again and again, but I think you'll get a really good, enjoyable evening out of it. So, that being said, has anybody out there seen this movie? Comment below. If you do say spoilers, please warn people that you're doing that. Am I completely off my rocker? Is this movie not? Is this movie exactly what the critics on the box office thought of it, or is it a decent little movie like I'm thinking? Tell me what you think below. Please smash the like button. If the YouTube algorithm has brought you here and you're not a regular subscriber, please take a look at my titles. I go into a lot of different topics. Surely you'll find something interesting. Consider subscribing. And if you think somebody might find this interesting, please share it with them. Well, thank you for spending time with me this evening. Hope to see you again in a future video.